with your host, Sammy Castro. Episode 4. Master Sergeant Chris Thomason. Thanks for tuning in. First peers that I shared this idea with when you and Plumley came out to Okie. You laughing at the holes in my sock? When you and Plumley came out to Okie for that visit, and at first I could see the both of you were like, what the fuck for? But after thinking about it and actually agreeing to come sit down here and talk and sip on something cold, what do you think now?
Like I said, I'm just not a creative type of person. That's one of my wife's cousins tried to get me to start a blog for him because he wanted to sell. He's an online entrepreneur guy, and he wanted to sell like survival gear. He wanted me to write a blog about survival stuff and outdoorsy stuff, macho type stuff. I guess being a Marine, I should know all that.
Right.
I just never, I have ideas for creative stuff, but
the actual execution of it is something entirely different.
Yeah.
So, one of the main reasons why I wanted to sit down and press record with you is the fact that you've got a unique perspective from my understanding, having been kind of a latecomer to the OC field. You got a little bit of first sergeant in you. But and I've always felt this way. To be successful in this gun club of ours, particularly as a staff NCO, you've got to be a little bit of both. You've got to be that subject matter expert, but you've also got to be willing and able to tighten up on the little shit. And for a lot of people in our OC field, we have a hard time negotiating that balance. And so, from your perspective, what was it like when you first came into the 2600 community?
It wasn't so hard for me because I wasn't a very good grunt. You know what I mean? Anybody that knew me back then, that weren't my buddies, right? Staff NCOs, sergeants, stuff I worked for.
Right.
I would probably be amazed and disgusted that I'm a master sergeant. You know what I mean?
Disgusted?
Yeah. I was that guy. I was that shithead. I picked up corporal because I, did all the right things. I was in security forces, so I showed up to the fleet infantry, got promoted corporal the very next month.
Okay.
I didn't drink the Kool-Aid. Thought I was too cool for it, too smart for it. I had some bad leaders, so they kind of disenchanted me along the way. And then, so I just thought I was smarter than everybody and just kind of doing my time. I didn't get in trouble. I did a lot of things I probably could have gotten a lot of trouble for, like all of us do.
Right.
I didn't do anything overly stupid. I got my hair cut every week. I never had an issue with that. I grew a little longer on top than they liked. It was well within regs. It wasn't as long as this. But, back then, peacetime Marine Corps, grunt world, didn't fly, And I'd push the boundaries a little bit, I'd go to chow hall and get my tray out and turned upside down because some guys said you shouldn't turn the EG upside down, Little things like that just to push people's buttons.
Man, that's old school.
You know what I mean? I was a corporal, so we PT, and I didn't feel like running as fast as Gunny was running. I'd fall out because even though I would beat most of the guys on the PFT, nobody said shit to me as a corporal because I just didn't want to play the game. It was just me being an immature, hard-head, type of guy. I hated the Marine Corps. Wanted to get out, do my time, stay out of trouble, gain experiences, be with my buds, and then call it a day. That was the plan. But when I came back in, I told my wife, we talked about it. We talked about going back in. I knew I wanted to lat move. I told her that, I gotta be moto. I'm not gonna go in and half-ass it. I always said if you do one day over 4 years, you might as well do 20. You know, I don't necessarily agree with that now, but at the time I thought, if you're dumb enough to sign back up, might as well ride it out. Because it just keeps getting better.
And that's how you view it, being dumb enough?
And back then, especially. Maybe a little bit now, still. But so and this is really stupid, but, and I know, I think you want to talk about this at some point, but during my Air Force time, I was doing training.
Air Force time.
Yeah, we'll go back to that.
Okay.
So I went to the library on the base my reserve unit was at Barksdale, Air Force Base, Louisiana. And they had a book exchange. I was by myself in the barracks, wife and kids are back home. And I saw it was a book. It's called Marine. It was about Jesse Puller. That most moto dumb thing I see you smile at me, but I read that book. And
I love that book.
Right, I read through it, and you know what? There was things in there that reminded me what I loved about the Marine Corps that made me want to join it, and the things that, what the Marine Corps should have been. You take away all the bad people that didn't, the bad leadership I saw, and the things that add those negative feelings about it, and it is a good organization. And at the same time, I'd also just got married, was having kids. I married a woman that had 3 kids, so I was maturing very quickly at that point in my life.
You step your game up.
Yeah.
She's got a family, and you're going to be part of it.
So I started seeing my immature ways of, younger me.
Right.
And so, reading that book kind of remotivated me to be a Marine. I definitely want to go back to the grunts, but I knew what the Marine Corps as an organization was about, and that, hopefully I can go in and be that good guy. That's why I know, it's a few times I toyed with the idea of putting F on the fit rep. I love our career field, and it's a great opportunity. That's why I came back in, but I wanted to be different, be a good influence, and treat Marines and the Marine Corps like it's supposed to be, because too often it doesn't happen,
So let's talk about the Air Force. Explain to me how that turn of events took place.
Well, I kind of talk about all of it, I guess. It's like when I got out, I started dating my now wife right before I got out. She was recently divorced from a Marine. She's 8 years older than me, 7.5 if you ask her, right? But she has 3 kids. She had 3 kids. So, once again, I was being that stereotypical dumbass Marine, Jacksonville, North Carolina. Meets a older lady at the club, divorced from a Marine with a bunch of kids, fell in love the whole night. But, it's worked out so far.
You've been together for how long now?
Going on 16 years married.
Wow.
So
it worked.
Yeah,
You beat the odds.
It ain't over till it's over, but it's. But yeah, so got out, and I immediately had a family I had to take care of because I wanted to move back to Texas, and she was wanting to move away. She wanted to stay in Jacksonville. So
was she okay with going to Texas?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she had gone back and visited with me when we were dating. Liked the area. She had talked about it because she worked in travel, so she wanted to work for the airlines. And so she either wanted to move to Chicago or Dallas, Fort Worth, because that's where 2 big airports were. And so, hey, how about that? I'm from Dallas, Fort Worth, so she was okay with it. So we moved there, and it was a little adventure. And it's to take care of a family, you know what I mean? So I started working my ass off, working at Whataburger. It's the place that hire you, pay you a decent salary with no college degree, and give you an opportunity. So I worked a lot of hours, worked overnight shift, fast food management. You don't get the best employees in the world when you're working an overnight shift at a fast food place, but you can't fire them because there's nobody to replace them. So you got to learn how to develop them.
Okay.
Learn when to give, learn when to hammer them, and when you really just got to pull the plug sometimes. And that's where I developed not only my parenting skills, because I instantly had a son that was 12 years younger than me.
Right.
I had a son that was 10 years younger than me. Then I had one that was 4 or 5 when we got married. He was 5, just turned 5. So, so I had to be a parent to 3 boys that I didn't have them through the shaping years. So I had to learn how to adapt to their personalities and still had it pointed in the right direction.
All boys?
She had 3 boys with her previous marriage, yeah.
Wow.
And so working at Whataburger, with the crew that I had, they were good kids. But the Marine in me, we have a standard. There's rules, there's regulations. I make a burger a certain way.
Right.
I hold the food in the pan for a certain time. We throw it out. We minimize waste. We work hard. You show up, you clean, you greet everybody who walks to the door. And I tried to instill that in my employees. It was hard, but I wasn't an asshole to them. At least I didn't think so. The only one that ever threatened to fight me was when a guy got fired because he was trying to steal basically. So anyway, worked my ass off at Whataburger. Started kind of developing my maturity, seeing how hard work in the outside world is. That it's not all roses like we think.
Right.
I didn't get weekends off. I didn't get holidays off. When you get 96s, and all that good stuff. When you get those short days, it was minimum 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. So then I met one night, come to the drive-thru, a lady from Krispy Kreme. They were hiring managers, and a little bit more pay, a little bit better gig. They were growing, so I jumped on it and started working over there. And at the same time, that was just as hard because I got promoted to general manager really quick. So I guess I had some, my experience as a Marine leader, my maturity. I don't know. I guess they saw something in me over there because they were growing from 2 stores to like 5 or 6, so they needed to promote people or hire people quick. So I got promoted to general manager really quick, so I was running my own store. I was 24 years old, 25. And I was, running a store with 40 people in it. People had employees that were in their 40s, so it made me grow up real quick. It made me learn how to deal with people that had more life experience than me. And all that, and once again, the maturity, and I was just started missing the military because a lot of it was time off. That's a great perk that we don't realize. We talk about healthcare.
Yeah.
We talk about retirement, but we don't talk about 96s.
No,
30 days of leave, from day one. So we started talking about going back in the Marines when we talked to a Marine recruiter, and he said that that was 2003. So that's right. That's Iraq kicked off. So I'm a mortarman. Guess they need in Iraq. Mortarman. So there were no boat spaces, or there were just tons of boat spaces for grunts. So they said, the chance of you lap moving is slim to none. So I said, all right, well, thanks, have a nice day. So then I started looking around, talked to the Army. Hey, what's the chances of me lap moving? Because I wanted to be active duty military. I knew I was missing out on benefits and retirement. I was seeing how expensive it was to pay for health care with a family of 6. And they said, oh, you're trained as a mortarman? Guess what? We need mortarmen in Iraq. So I said, all right. I thought, well, in the Air Force, they have cool duty stations, and they don't have mortarmen, so they'll have to train me to do something else. So I went to talk to them. But people don't realize that the Air Force doesn't let people from other branches join active duty. Very rarely do they, unless you would be PJ or Air Combat Controller or recruiter, which is weird.
As a matter of fact, I'm working on a package for a young Marine who trained jiu-jitsu with me out in Oki. He's trying to go over there for something a similar program to what you're talking about. So yeah, it is one of those little discussed facts, not commonly known until you look into it and you're like, holy shit, I can't just go over there.
Well, we used to joke back in the grunt days, we get out and join the Air Force. Everybody'd say, oh, they don't let Marines come in because they're too militarized. But the truth is they don't let anybody from anywhere join from another branch. It has nothing to do with being a Marine.
It's just,
I don't know why. It doesn't make sense.
They want a clean slate, tabula rasa.
The way I look at it is I can go in with a proven track record of what I've done, what I haven't done, versus some kid off the street that could be just trying to find a way to sling dope, on the base or something. Who knows? But it wasn't like I was an E4. You know what I mean? You get that out of training in Air Force. You know what I'm saying? That's not even, doesn't hold as much weight as it does the Marine Corps. So I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But
wait. You say that it doesn't hold as much weight in the Air Force as it does in the Marine Corps. There's a difference in your perspective for how they apply things.
I'm assuming the audience aren't.
I think the majority of the people that are listening to this will probably already have that assumption.
Yeah. I mean,
firmly entrenched in their mind.
And I didn't have that much responsibilities. Like I said, I didn't put that much effort into it, right? But I was still in charge of a gun and 4 Marines, and the reserve unit in the Air Force. And so I joined the Air Force Reserves, doing supply at some Air Force base in Louisiana. So I had to drive 3 or 4 hours to go to my reserve base one week in a month. In that reserve unit, everybody was, mid to late 30s or older, and everybody was in E6. There was me and like one other E4, and this dude was like 18 and just joined right out of high school. And there were dudes that were former Marines from Vietnam.
Wow.
One guy joined the Navy in 1970, and he was still there. So that's the reserve world, especially in the Air Force. And that took a little bit of shifting of my mind in order to, adjust to the Air Force. I used to always joke that.
This is the Texas Air National Guard, is it?
No, it was Air Force Reserve.
Okay.
But the Air Force is different than Marines. You can't sit there and cuss at somebody and just berate them. I saw a girl go to the chaplain because she didn't like the orders she got in school. Things like that. So it's a different world. So
How'd that work for her? She got what she wanted?
Luckily, the chaplain was pretty tough, and the instructor was a retired Air Force guy who was a little bit more old school. And he pretty much called her out in class and shoot her ass, basically. I don't know that now. In the long run, I don't know how that worked out.
Right.
But that was interesting. But it caused me to adjust my mentality a little bit, kind of tone down and learn how to adapt to the situation I'm in. Which, back to your very first question, probably all that stuff, my leading the civilians and my fast food job, and having to adapt to the Air Force probably helped me adapt to the different mindset that existed in the intel world when I showed up at Camp Lejeune.
So when you're not marining, what are you doing on your downtime to kind of decompress and manage a balance?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't have a whole lot of downtime. I'm very involved in my family, and that's one thing that I've always, I've never sacrificed my family for my career. Some people may say that makes me a bad Marine. I haven't deployed near as much as a lot of people. I've never shirked my way out of a deployment, but I haven't always necessarily, some guys love being gone. I don't. I enjoy doing my job. I like being around Marines, but I don't want my kids to grow up without me around. So like when there were some opportunities to go to some very special programs, special units that I was pretty much a shoo-in for. I talked to people and it was all but guaranteed that I was going to get a slot. Even to the point where they were going to assign me a billet that if I didn't make it through selection, I'd still work for the organization, just not in that higher capacity. But those guys are gone 300 days a year between deployments and training and visits and everything else.
Yes.
That's not me. You know what I mean? There's plenty of guys that want to do it.
Comes at a price.
Somebody's got to do it. You know what I mean? But I don't want to. I've seen people that don't have especially having daughters. Because I married my wife and had 2 more kids. That's why I have 5 kids now versus the 3 step kids that I originally started off with. So having daughters, I know it's important for them to have a father figure around, and I want to be there. I didn't want to sacrifice that and miss them growing up. Because
Right.
A lot of people miss it when they get close to retirement age. There's a lot of regret. I don't have that regret. So family's important. So I spend a lot. I want to make sure I didn't grow up rich. I grew up, I did get to play football when I was young because the $50 was way too much for my dad to spend for me to go play, Little League football. I had to wait till junior high when it was free. So, I try to let my kids do any type of activities, and I run them around everywhere, try to buy them stuff, whatever I got to do. Because all the things I didn't get as a kid, that I wish I could have, so.
Kind of compensating for that?
You know what, give them opportunities, because the truth is, your success, even though anybody can be successful, you get to start off with the answers to the test a little bit, the more opportunities you're given. That's just the truth of, humanity, our culture, our economy, that's the way it is. So I want to give my kids chances to, take them to go be culture, go see museums, go learn stuff, drive around, meet people, be part of activities, travel. You know, my first plane ride was to boot camp. My daughters have flown probably 100 times, you know, and they're 13 and 14. So, you know, they've seen a lot of the country, some of the world, you know. So I don't want to sacrifice any of that for them. So, you know, basically my free time a lot of times is running the cheerleading, doing stuff for them. You know, I bought a beautiful home here. Plan on staying in Hawaii. Looks like a resort. It's a real gym. I mean, the home is. We're lucky to come on it. It was a lot of the stars aligned for sure for us to get this house. But it's really far away, so I spend a lot of time on the road. You know, so that eats up a little bit of free time. On weekends, I maybe get one day a week where I get to just stay at home, walk down to the beach, you know, that kind of stuff. So my free time, my decompressing is literally decompressing. Sit on my ass, watching TV, maybe play some video games, just hang out with the family, get in the hot tub, you know. Yard work. I don't consider that decompressed time. That's my wife.
Chores.
That's my wife, the gutty, yelling at me, making sure I'm, you know, meeting her standards.
Honeydews.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I've been trying to get into hobbies.
What hobbies?
I want to learn to sail. That's on my to-do list. I have two banjos.
2 banjos?
Yeah.
You only got 2 hands.
I can't play any banjo. I can't even play them, but it's on my to-do list.
So some of the feedback that I've been getting was that I talk too much and I should just let the guests talk, but
I will shut up.
Yeah, fuck them. If they don't like it, they can either turn it off or make their own podcast. But I was we mentioned before, I in conversation, we did the tour in the Dominican Republic, and this one great family, former Marine, he worked for the State Department. He gave us a sailboat, and he was looking to sell it. He had taken us out previously with him a couple of times, and him and his wife had adopted these 2 beautiful children, a brother and a sister, and they spent their tour out in the DR, always at Club Náutico, which it's prohibitively expensive to join. You know, only the upper crust of society there can afford it. However, for diplomats, your fees and registration and process for getting in was expedited. Let's just say. So, you know, we got a membership there, and when he left, he couldn't sell it. He just gave it to us, and he said, you know, that his kids had talked about it at dinner time with the wife, and they decided that since they couldn't find a buyer, they just wanted to give it to our family as a you know, they're going away, but a present to us. And so along with the membership to the club, you got free lessons on the weekends, and they also had a sailing camp during the summer. So we dropped the boys off in downtown Santo Domingo. They take them on like a bus or a shuttle off to the club, and the boys would spend almost the entire day out there, and then come back just brown and burnt to a crisp and worn out, you know, because they'd been on the water all day, and you know, they done ate and exercised, and it was a great environment for them, and that's where we learned how to sail. A little laser, which is a specific class of dinghy, but it was probably some of the best times that we had during that tour, out there on the water, you know, just paying attention to the wind and just relaxing and enjoying the views and just the time together. And, you know, Hawaii is one of those places where you can definitely do that. Just, you know, find a spot that's got, you know, a novice-friendly environment and just get to it. I'd recommend the catamarans, the little Hobie cats, as kind of like a launching phase, and then you get a little bit more, I guess, skillful. You could switch up to something like a laser. But it's something that my oldest son in particular definitely enjoys. And then recently my youngest son, and it surprised me because there was a point in there when we capsized, what you're going to do. But you figure out how to get it back up right. He got scared. He got a little nervous. Being out in the water so small, and, you know, the boat goes under, and it had an impact on him. So, but just recently he said that he wants to overcome his fear of sailing by getting back out on the sailboats. And for me as a father, I'm like, fuck yeah, that's my boy.
That's
yeah,
good.
to face his challenges and his fears like that. So I highly recommend getting into the sailing thing because it doesn't size, weight, strength. A lot of that really doesn't come into play. It's just paying attention to your surroundings and learning to shift and have a plan. I think your daughters will love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just figure something that's quiet. You gotta worry about running out of gas. You just go out, find the wind, and go with it.
And you always have the right of way,
Oh, yeah.
or you're supposed to.
Yeah. For me, that's the reason I haven't learned to play the banjo because I have buddies that play. And,
Why the banjo? Why not just a guitar?
I don't know, because it was weird. I remember growing up and hearing the banjo, thinking it was cool. And it just got in my mind that, I want to learn to play the banjo. Even though the banjo is a little bit more of a hipster instrument right now, you see a little bit more in pop music. So I'm going to out hipster that. I was into the banjo before all that, but I don't know. I just thought it'd be kind of cool. And I figured it's probably hard to play. Actually, one thing I read an article once about that. I guess the banjo used to be taught at Juilliard way back when. Like it was actually considered a relatively high-end type of instrument, but then the whole hillbilly like Deliverance came out. It got associated with like hillbilly type music because it used to be played differently a long time ago. And then back in I guess the 40s, a couple guys came out and changed the way it was played, and it became more of like the hillbilly bluegrass type thing. And so it's kind of changed the way people look at it is a little different. But it's just interesting. But I can't teach myself to do anything. My buddy's like, get some tabs and just figure it out. That's not me. That's why sailing. I will never get a sailboat and just go out in the water. I have to go to sailing classes. The way my brain works is I gotta understand the why behind things. I gotta learn how. Like if I play the banjo, I gotta learn to read music.
Right.
I gotta understand the notes. I gotta know exactly what I'm doing. I can't just watch a guy, do the fingering and then just basically copy it because it won't make sense to me. I gotta know why.
So Ricky's been playing the trumpet for almost 5 years now, give or take, and just out of nowhere. Because when we were in the DR, one of the State Department, what are they called? Foreign Service officers sold us a used violin that her son used to play. That wasn't playing it no more any longer. And we just picked it up because we knew it was a steal. It was pennies of the dollar from what she paid for it, and it just sat in its case for quite a long time until very recently. I started hearing it, and I was like, I looked at my wife. I was like, "What is that?" She said, "It's Enrique. He's been playing the violin, and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days go by. He starts playing tunes." I mean, having one instrument under his belt, and he's in an advanced band right now, and now he can play the violin. Taught himself. It's crazy.
Some kids have it. I don't have a lot of music. I can't dance. I can't sing. I can't keep rhythm. My daughter's laughing when I try to snap along to a song. Or, you know what I mean? So I probably will never learn to play the banjo well.
It's a good thing you weren't a drill instructor.
And I would have yelled at them for getting out of step. But yeah, my daughter, man, she taught herself to play that. She learned the violin when she was really little. She wasn't able to play, so she took a few lessons for that. But recently, she come in here. She taught herself the ukulele, and then she got my son's keyboard. She's teaching herself to play that. So she's got it in her. I don't have it. She must get that from her mom, but not this guy.
So what are you reading?
Right now, I'm reading The Barbell Prescription.
What's that?
It's strength training for life after 40. That's old man strength training. So basically, right now it's really dry. I'm only in chapter 4, I think. I can read a few pages at a time because I read at night before I go to bed. So
Just puts a sedative.
It puts me to sleep quick. It's written by Dr. Dan Sullivan, I think is his first name, and it is another
Dan
guy.
Sullivan?
I think is his name. Something Sullivan. Two former Marines. This doctor who's a doctor of exercise science, and then some guy that owns a gym in Kingsville. He's a personal trainer. He does a lot of high-end stuff with professional athletes. He's a private gym, so it's all about rehabbing and developing some particular skills and stuff. But This talks about, all the things that happen to a human being as they age. And then we slowly, creep towards death and we get sick and we use medicine all the time and stuff like that. So he starts, the idea of the book is, instead of giving you this medicine that you need for all these ailments, that strength training is one of the best exercises to actually counter the problems. And there's actually science and, proof to back that up.
Right.
So that, a lot of people continue to jog and marathons. Well, it's definitely a challenging thing to do, but strength training,
putting the load on your body.
right, it helps. Osteoporosis is terrible, especially for older women, but it helps your bone density, weightlifting, and the way it interacts. Right now I'm very deep in the bioscience part. It goes into the way different fibers of your muscle interact with each other, and how different exercises affect different muscle fibers, and that the slow twitch and the fast twitch. And the fast twitch was actually 2 types of that, so it's tough. And I'm trying to absorb as much of it as I can.
Okay.
I'm trying not to skip to the end where it gives you the workout programs.
Right.
I'd like to understand the why so I can choose which program would be best for me.
That's what I did with Pavel Satsulin's Simple and Sinister.
Yeah, it's it gets real boring. I'm like reading the science stuff, but I like to, once again, I want to know the why to my music and my sailing, right? So I want to know the why to the muscles. So if I understand, I can choose the right program that meets my needs, and what the.
You have the ability to make an informed decision when you
Yeah.
start making your own modifications.
Yeah, because I don't have many more years in this Marine Corps, and I'm not built for long distance running. I had to teach myself and push myself through to get even decent at it. But it doesn't matter as much anymore as it used to on that 3-mile run. I can pass it with no issues. I can run pretty close to the same times I had 5 years ago. I'm okay with that. I don't need to get better.
What are you getting right now usually in your 3-mile run? When it counts for score?
A few years ago, I had the fastest time since '05, and it's just because the way I was working out was geared towards that. I was losing weight, running. I was trying to develop the PFT type of thing and trying to cut weight a lot. So my strength went down, obviously. My pull-ups went up, but pull-ups, it's hard, doesn't necessarily test strength. But my time was 21:50. But I haven't been able to double that since then. That was in 2014, I think. I read that. So my last year was just over 24 minutes. If I can be around the 24-minute mark, I'm okay with that. I don't complain. I could beat half the Marines that are half my age. You know what I mean? So that makes me happy. I know I still get a 287 on the CFT. The way I look at it is in combat, I'm going to run 3 miles, but I'm going to pick up a big ass dude and carry him for 100 yards. So to me, some people will argue. I've had a few people that I work with, our peers, that argue that it's because you're a fat, strong guy. You know what I mean? So that's why I don't get you like CFT because you're good at it. But I work for that. That's the kind of working I like to do. And to me, it makes sense. You go to any soft unit, they don't go out and run marathons. They go out and they do CrossFit, and they do high intensity stuff. They do weightlifting, and that's the reason why is because that's applies more directly to combat skills. The PFT is basically just testing physical fitness. It doesn't test how you are effective in combat. Now the chances of me ever being in combat, probably again carrying a dead body, hopefully are low. But while I'm in the Marine Corps, that's what I got trained to. So that's the way I look at it. So working on my strength, working on my body composition, and running just enough so I don't have to worry about passing the PFT.
Yeah, I think my fastest time ever when I was running all the time, I was training with a boxing club in Monterey, California. I think I got down to like 19:10. I'll never do that again.
Yeah, I did 20:30 once. That was back. I don't know if that PFT, of course, was quite long. That was back in my grunt days. You know what I mean? But,
right. Somebody the ops chief might have been giving y'all a pass. So you said earlier that you sometimes pop on a video game. What do you play?
I'm simple. Either football or racing.
Only Madden, right? There's only one.
No, I play NCAA actually.
Okay.
I get NCAA because it had a lot of options, and you can change the schools. They have fight songs, whatever. I don't know. I have Madden. I have.
So who's your go-to team for the NCAA?
So the NCAA.
University of Texas.
Nope.
A&M.
A&M.
Yeah.
They played a lot. Jeffrey especially played a lot of Halo. His dream one day for a while was to be a professional Halo player, you know. And they play a lot of Call of Duty and all that kind of stuff. But I don't like it. It pisses me off because I look at things. I want to play a game that's realistic. You know, one time me and some Marine buddies were going TD. We were sitting in the USO at DFW Airport because we had a long layover. And the USO there is awesome. They have a bunch of video games and stuff. So we're sitting there playing, and this kid comes up. He's on his way to Marine boot camp. So he jumps off with us. He's excited to meet some Marines, you know. So we talk to him. So it's us three against him. He just smokes us. And we're like, it's bullshit because the weapon I have isn't as powerful as his weapon.
Right.
So he has to shoot. I have to shoot him more times to kill him than he has to shoot me. Where in the real world, I shoot you one time in the knee with a pea shooter, you're gonna slow down. You know what I mean? I want to make your body not move nearly as fast, and so that's the way. You know, I don't like this. You have to run around and jump and do headshots with the scope, and you know what I mean. I want to play suppressive fire.
So it's interesting you say that because now the games are starting to develop that type of gameplay model that you're referring to. And one of the games that's recently become fairly popular, and I only know this because my son had a buddy of his come over for a sleepover one night, and he brought his laptop, and we're all PC gamers in my house. My boys, we built them their custom computers. I built one for me. It's my dad box home theater PC. So I'll set up like some TV trays with my keyboard and my mouse on it, and I'll sit on like an exercise yoga ball, and I'll play from there. But the game is called, it's popularly called PUBG. It's called PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and what it is it's a simulated remake of a Japanese movie called Battle Royale, which incidentally was part of the inspiration for the Hunger Games. So you start off when you first log in, and you can go in solo, you can go in as duo, as a pairs, or you can go in as a squad, which is a fire team. So 4 of you, and everybody's on. You start off when you first log in until all 100 people are in. You're just in this little like holding area, and then they load you up in a plane, and they fly you over this island. And the vector that they take over this in this flyover, it's random and it varies. And once you hit to a certain point, you can press a button to jump out, and then you can either free fall or you can just pull your chute right then and there. But when you land and you've got no gear on you, what you have available is what you find. So and then you'll see like a running tally on the left-hand side of who's getting killed and how they got killed. But if you take a shot in the leg, then that modifies your mobility effectively. And one of the things you come to learn real quick in PUBG is optics are king. If you can see and establish a comfortable range advantage from your adversaries, it makes it it makes it enticing. But you know, and there's different ways you can play it. You can just go all out. Like I'm just gonna hunt as many people as possible so I'm the last man standing, or I'm gonna hide as long as possible until I'm the last man standing. But the big payoff is when you and your team are the last survivors, and it says winner winner chicken dinner. So we'd spend a night playing that. Me, my oldest son, my youngest son, and then the sleepover friend. And I gotta say that the because you just get one life. There's no respawns, and then once you're done, you go back into the queue with the next 100 guys. It's a slow burn, but it'll get your heart rate pumping. I'd be interested to see what my pulse is like throughout the course of a round. But it's definitely a lot of fun and worth looking into if your kids are into that stuff, if they've not tried it already.
My son plays that actually. I know what you're talking about. Okay. I've seen him parachuting.
Yeah?
I didn't know what it was called.
Yeah, it's called PUBG.
Yeah, I've seen him play sometimes because he was always a girl. And I'm like, dude, what's up? Why are you a girl? I was like, something you got to tell me? And he said, no, I have a smaller silhouette. That way I can hide better. It's harder to hit. I'm like, look at that. That's learning tactics right there. Right? That's good, He said, you get the guys with the broad shoulders. He goes, the girl's small. It's harder to hit. Because he knows that coming from afar, you run down a grassy hill to a town, there might be a dude set up in a window, he's going to hit you. I'm like, look at that. So.
If you like first-person shooters and you enjoy playing games with your kids, I would definitely recommend checking out. Just because of the fact that the multiplayer aspect in and of itself is probably one of the best that are out there. Let's shift up a little bit. If I could turn back time and take you back to when you were a corporal in the Grunts and give you 2 hours with Corporal Thomason, what would you tell him? What advice would you give?
It sounds like a bullshit answer, but I wouldn't go back and change stuff. All the dumb shit I did, because I've been lucky enough to make it out. Make it out who I am without too much trouble. I've been lucky along the way. A lot of the things I've done, other people do, and their life changes for the worse. I used to drive too fast when I was young. But I've never had a major accident. I've driven drunk more times than I care to. Driven drunk, right? I don't remember I drove. I woke up. Who drove home? You did. You know what I mean? And luckily, I never killed anyone, killed myself. That kind of stuff, So of course, those are things I regret. But I've been lucky enough to make it out the other side without too much trouble. I would tell myself to probably get my education sooner because it just got harder and harder as I got older and older.
Right.
Not that I'm using it right now, but it's just something to get knocked out, so it gives you more opportunity to get more education. Because I know that on the outside, that's important.
You don't think it's important now?
It's helped me. It's helped me write better. It's helped me speak better, and I've learned a little bit. I think that definitely. I don't know. I got my degree because it helps you get a job. It makes you more marketable. You don't necessarily, unless you're in a highly technical thing, in my opinion, it doesn't really give you too much more knowledge you might already have. I've learned a little because I have my cybersecurity degree, finished a couple years ago, about a year and a half ago.
With who?
University of Maryland University College, UMUC.
Yep. They seem to be really popular in the Pacific. Yeah. I don't know if that's a whole DoD thing, but at least on the bases in the Pacific, I've seen a significant UMUC presence.
Yeah, they're military friendly. They give a lot of credits for your they account for your military time.
But they're regionally accredited, from what I understand.
Accredited, yeah. They're the largest public university in Maryland. They are not part of the University of Maryland
system,
yeah, but I don't know, I can't remember what they're tied into, but it's a legit school. It's been around for a long time. It was originally created and geared towards, and still is, adult learners, part-time learners. And as soon as the internet happened, it became big online. But it wasn't easy, I put more work into that than I did in my actual college time. I did much better, so maybe that's a direct reflection of how my success and my grades. But so I learned about policies, cybersecurity policies, how to write a policy, the pubs and the references that I've ever had to actually be in that position, what I could use. But it didn't really teach me a whole lot, It was just more of learning how to meet deadlines and how to write is a big thing. I could look at my papers I wrote when I first got back into school, and then my senior papers, much better writing. You learn how to put your thoughts on paper, ins and outs, how to annotate, provide citations for everything you've done. That's stuff that I probably learned in high school, but I've forgotten it as an adult, so it brought it all back to my forefront.
Why is this important? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I definitely tell myself to get to try to get my education earlier. That way, because I'm getting towards the end of my timeline where a TA pays for a master's. So if that's something I want to do, I need to shit or get off the pot kind of thing. But if I'd done that back when I was Corporal Thomason, I'd have a lot more opportunity, get more advanced degrees and space it out and that kind of thing. I don't know. Nothing big. Honestly, I'm sure I made mistakes. Like I met my wife. I've done things wrong with the kids, but nothing. That's just you learn from your mistakes. You learn from your errors. It's better to learn from other people's. That's one thing I've learned as a father. My son joined the Marines, 26, 21. Try to set him up for success. He did every dumb thing that every young Marine does. Even though I thought
This is my first time knowing that. Your son's a SIGINT Marine?
He was. Yeah, he joined at Pensacola right out of high school. We got him in the DC program, or was it DD, whatever. It's an Intel. knew a guy that knew a guy, and they made sure he went the SIGINT route versus the O2 route. And then when he showed up at Corey Station, I was ops chief, and I made sure he got in the 21 course. All above board. Nothing shady,
Right.
But I want to make sure, I want to set him up for success. That's one thing I've learned on my time outside is, who helps out. And so take out, like I said, you can, take the opportunities that you can get in life. And so I made sure, I've tried to set him up with a good job. He would learn a skill. Because I joined the Marines, nobody in my family was military, I knew they were grunts and MPs, that's all I knew. I found out there were Humvee mechanics in boot camp, and I was pissed. I was like, I could learn to work on a Humvee and get out and be a Humvee mechanic, I didn't know anything. I was stupid. So I tried to give him a good technical job that he would enjoy. He was smart, he had to do grunt stuff. I got my combat action ribbon, I got to do stuff outside the wire, so he'd be an intel guy that gets to get a little bit dirty sometimes, so it's the best of both worlds.
Right. Clearance, exposure,
exactly.
the training.
I was trying to set him up for success in the future. And then all your, the training you get translates to college credits, so you can get your degree if you get out and want to go that route.
Was it tough on him being at the unit in the schoolhouse when you were there as an instructor?
Absolutely, because everybody knew who he was. I let that cat out of the bag early. I knew he was coming.
So you did that intentionally?
Of course. I don't want him to have an easy ride. I want him to be tough.
I don't know if I'd have to think about that. I mean, I guess you can't hide it. You mean his name tape's his name tape,
no,
right?
he's my stepson, so he's different name tape. So he could have hidden it. He doesn't look like me at all. But,
But you put him on the hook anyway.
I wanted him to have to work. I didn't want him to get, we had a good crew down there, and so they weren't going to give him a free ride. Like my buddy was his platoon sergeant. He did field day inspections. Actually, I think it was company gunny. And he said, he always failed his rack being made. He said that was the best rack I've ever seen. But it was always, every time he walked in his room, the sheets were ripped off the rack, you know what I mean? Because taught him it's never good enough, and then we're trying to set the right life lessons. But he made some, he did some, got married to a high school sweetheart at Corey Station.
Ooh.
Asked her dad's permission to let her get married when she was 17 because she hadn't graduated high school yet. All those dumb things that young Marines do, he did every one of them. I was setting him up to not make those same mistakes that everybody else makes. So unfortunately, I say out of one side of the mouth that you should learn from your mistakes, but I also say you should learn from mistakes of others, but we never do. We always think we're smarter. We always think we got to figure it out.
Of course.
So.
So he's no longer in, I take it?
Yeah, he did his 5 years. Figured out too late what the right thing to do was. He didn't drink the Kool-Aid till the end of the party, and so it was too late. It was the way the time he got out was when we were downsizing. So
yeah,
you had to be just top notch as far as all those metrics go, and he was middle of the road, so didn't make the cut. He regrets it. So now he's in the Army. So
as a SIGINT?
No. He went to do 18 X-ray Special Forces. So it's like 18 X-ray is their first accession type of program.
Okay.
So a lot of guys are already in the Army, then they go Special Forces. But 18 X-ray is for guys off the street or prior service guys. So he did that. Once again, one day they realize I'm not so dumb. That what I say usually turns out pretty close.
Dad knows what he's talking about.
But that's the joy of parenting, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I've asked Enrique if he'd be interested in going into the military, but I think our time at the embassy has shown him that you can serve your country without having to be in uniform, and there's still honor in it. If that's as an NSA civilian, if that's as a CIA civilian, Department of State. I don't see him as the law enforcement military type, but I could see him going into the intelligence community or the diplomatic corps, something along those lines. He's got the aptitude for it, yeah. and being now the fact that he's lived in 2 different countries outside of the U.S. That exposure is priceless. Although he did fight us on Spanish when we were in the DR, but him and his brother are taken to the Japanese in a way that is really kind of surprising to me. You know, so every so often they'll bust out in a Japanese phrase, and I won't understand what they're saying. That they're acquiring it faster than I am. You know, but a lot of my time with Japanese is mostly when I'm in the mat room with the Japanese out in town that I train jiu-jitsu with. And we've got a couple of spots where it's just mostly Marines, but off base there's a spot we go to, and the locals come in and we train with them, and that's where you'll hear the instruction in English, you'll hear the instruction in Portuguese, and you'll hear the instruction in Japanese. So it makes it interesting, but they're picking it up. I asked some of the other guys about examples of adversity that you've had to overcome, professional adversity. But it seems to me that those experiences are sometimes, I guess, harder to come by with guys that have been selected to Master Sergeant. But a few of us, myself included, have had to deal with that. Have you?
Yeah, absolutely. Trying to think of, a couple times, big ones I can think of, other than just personal adversity, duty station changing last minute, that kind of stuff. Be away from the family drama that affects work, those kind of things. But as far as actual career adversity, big what pops in mind is I wanted to be a warrant officer. That was, I came back up all the way to the very beginning. When I decided to come back in the Marine Corps, we wanted to be an officer. That was kind of the plan. I'd come back in, enlisted, learn a good skill set, and then put in for the MSgt program, and then go get my commission, be an officer, and go that route.
Right.
But I got to where I put in my MSgt package. Thought I had a strong package. A bunch of us. There's one guy that's actually a warrant officer in our community. I don't name names, but I know he was in there as well for a different program, and he didn't. I was the only one that got it recommended with enthusiasm from the colonel from the MSG. Out of all of us that were in there, strong PFT, 271. For me, that's strong. Like I said, my running's not always my strong game. The colonel gave me a hard time about it. I think it was just to sweat me. He pulled me in his office, turned the AC off. I'm in my alphas. He starts grilling me, tell me I'm not ready. I'm sweating, and he's just tearing me up. And then he gave me recommended enthusiasm, thinking he was testing out my, how I was going to handle somebody giving me a hard time. But I thought I had a strong package. Set it up. Came back with the board results. Wasn't on there. A little disappointed. Everybody's like, look, nobody gets selected the first time. Just keep putting it in. You'll get better. You get more experience. So I have my next package put together, and I go to Captain Roper, company commander. He was a MSgt guy, and he wrote me a letter of recommendation for the previous year. He said, I'll write you a letter of recommendation, but I want you to find out what they look for on the board. He was a big MSgt Garcia, fortune favors the bold. Find out what they looked for on the board. Go. So I started calling around. I ended up getting in touch with the civilian ladies at Headquarters Marine Corps that received the packages, processed them, and turned them into the board. And she said, what's your name? She started looking me up in the database from the previous year. Name wasn't on there. So MSG dropped the ball and this in my ship in time. They missed the cutoff. Even though I had it into them 2 months before the due date.
Wow.
So that was a gut punch. I wanted, I thought that motherfucker, the admin chief, he should be, I wanted his head to roll. But okay, fine. Learn from the adversity. Already my package, I'll just do it this year. I go back in time and give me the commission, so. Done my package, had duty on Sunday, duty NCO. Had my package together, my company board was that Monday. I'm sitting there and I'm soul searching, middle of the night, bored, trying to stay awake. I'm like, you know what, I started doing the math. I would have graduated with my degree. I've been 35, 12 years in the Marine Corps. I'd be a boot lieutenant. And I might end up being, and I've learned how the thirds work for officer appointments. I thought, I'm lucky to be in the SIG community. I've done well here. It's just opening worlds of opportunity for me in the future. What if I end up getting not the job I wanted and being a supply officer or logistics officer? Not that that's, are bad jobs.
That's not what your passion was.
That's not what I wanted to do, right? I wanted. There's no guarantee that we stay in this community. I know a buddy of mine, good dude. I assume he didn't put Lago as his top choice. He's a Lago. And my brother-in-law's a Lago, or was a Lago, and he does very well for himself on the outside. So it's, it's a good skill set, but it's not what I was into. And so I thought, why not just. So that Monday morning, I found this gunny who was on the MU, and he kept trying to say, "Hey man, you should come on the MU." The same thing me as an offshoot gets mad at now because Twin Sergeant's trying to recruit guys.
Right.
He was doing it to me. I said, "Hey gunny, you still need."
We'll circle back to that.
Yeah. I said, "Hey gunny, you still need somebody on the MU?" And he said, "Let's go." He took me over to the S3. "Hey, this guy wants to go on the MU. Can I take him?" "Sure." "Need another team guy." "All right, bam, done." He said, "What's up with MESEP?" I said, "I'm not going to do it." So I told him, canceled the company board. I still have my package put together. It's in my closet at home, I thought, you know what? I'll go warrant officer. I can still be an officer. I can still, move into that world, but I can stay in our community and I can influence our community. So fast forward through my time, I tried to meet certain wickets. I wanted to be a good candidate. Got a good letter of recommendation from a retiring Master Guns. He said, "I'm writing this for you, but I don't want you to apply until at least next year." He goes, "You're not quite there yet." Roger. So I did all that. My goal was to do the warrant officer. Then all of a sudden the Marine Corps changed policy on tattoos. Now they grandfather people. You're not going to get kicked out, but you're not eligible for officer programs if you don't meet the new standard, regardless of if you were a standard before. And it's because of the tattoo on my leg that you can only see in PT gear. To me, I didn't see it as a big deal. So,
What's the tattoo of?
it's like hibiscus flowers and waves, just a little thing my brother did for me back, while I was out of the Marine Corps. It's a little design we kind of came up together, and he put on my leg a little band. So the band could only be 2 inches thick. It was 3 inches thick. I had a few guys that were in the warrant officer program, and they said, dude, nobody's gonna check. But I just like to once again go back. Chester Poole had integrity in that book. I try to have integrity. You know what I'm saying? So and I don't want to be that guy that gets called out.
It goes back to the book Marine.
But I mean, I don't want to be the guy that
Right.
I show up there and somehow I slip through the cracks, and I show up there and they go, "Hey, motherfucker, that's
Get a shit bag."
Sorry, yeah, but that's.
No, this is an explicit podcast.
All right, good.
It's meant for Marines. Right.
All right,
So,
And so, so I was not eligible for a warrant officer because of that. So that kind of sucked. But then, the truth is, and you know this, a lot of guys in our community, the good ones, go warrant officer, get out. Not a lot of,
Yeah.
we get fewer and fewer that make it, they make it up and stick around a while. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to just be the best damn master guns I can be.
I put in a package for an officer program when I was at DLI, of all places. Had never hit the fleet, didn't know what. I had an idea, but I didn't know the specific dynamics between the senior enlisted, the warrant officers, and the commissioned officers in our field. And the company gunny asked me, he says, "Goster, what the fuck you want to be an officer for?" And my response to him, without blinking, without hesitating, was because I'd be good at it, and because I'd be good at it, there's an obligation for me to do it. And he's like, "What's wrong with being a master guns?" And I didn't have a real good answer for that, because to me, there's nothing wrong with being a master guns. And in a lot of ways, master guns are some of the coolest cats you come across.
Yeah.
But then when I got to the fleet, I saw that there was a difference in the division of labor as it lays out, and they're all leaders. It's just in how you lead, and one of the things that has endeared me to this gun club of ours, this brotherhood, is the way in which we get to interact with one another that I think you'd be hard pressed to find outside the wire. And unfortunately, and I think that when I finally sit down and talk with Kyle Boone, we'll get into it. You have to keep yourself separate as a warrant officer or as a commissioned officer, whereas as a master sergeant, I can still have that intrusive leadership style that is part of who I am, and and is a large part of what I enjoy about this this organization. And I think that's what's kept me more than anything in the flat black side. But if not for the Marines, where would Chris Thomason be? Would you still be in the military?
Marines from day one or from the second go round?
Second go
When I
round.
was successful in Marine. Maybe not. You know, if that opportunity never came up to go active duty Air Force, I may have stayed in the reserves. I may have given up. Because honestly, you know, that was not very fulfilling. It wasn't very. I don't know. I mean, I made a few $100 to go drive and spend a weekend away from family. You know, it wasn't. Even the deployments weren't that. They were few and far between. So it was nothing like real military to me. You know.
Right.
So I don't know if I would have put up with that too long, but who knows? I mean, it was, you know, there's still an end in sight. There's still retirement. There's still a chance to serve your country. There's still that extra cash. Some of the benefits come along with it. So who knows? I'd probably be working my ass off. Still doing, you know, retail, restaurant management, something like that. You know, I try to be a hard worker. I'm not afraid to shy away from it. I love doing nothing, but when it's time to do something, you know, I do what I got to do. And I did well at Krispy Kreme. You know, I mean, I was, like I said, I was probably the youngest general manager in our area, but I was probably the more senior one. And I know I was the highest paid one. I always met my budgets. You know, I always got my bonuses. I always got invited to the, you know, whenever they had conferences for certain managers to develop new programs, I was one of the guys that got cherry picked to go and partake in that. So I was successful. I took a pay cut to come back to the Marine Corps. You know, especially in the infantry world, at the time, a lot of the sergeants I knew, the guys that had, you know, been in a little while, they were all retreads. They got out and just couldn't quite make it in the outside world. So they came back in. And, you know, I would have come back in. Well, I say that. I said I'll do what I got to do. But I'm glad to say that I was able to come back in because I wanted to. Definitely were benefits I missed. It wasn't like I just, you know, complete sacrifice. You know, I definitely, there were some gains from it, but, you know, I was being pretty successful in the outside world, and I had a decent future where if I was willing to move, I was trying to move around and move into different positions and probably work my way up to the company or other companies, you know. I mean, the exposure I got there and the experience I got could translate well to all different types of business, you know. So probably would have been in that world, but that's a tough world to live in. You know, that's not a 40-hour-a-week job.
No.
40-hour-a-week type thing. You're relying upon, because your bonuses are so heavily part of your salary, you can't take a week off because, you know, as soon as you don't meet your labor goals, your bonus is affected. You know, and one thing that a lot of times when I give Marines, you know, they're going away speech, they're checking out, I'm talking to them about the real world a little bit, or anytime I get to sit down and mentor them, is, you know, everybody's had that asshole gunny that's a dumbass, and he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And if he would just step aside or go home for the day, you could easily do his job 10 times better than him. That happens in the outside world too. But imagine that gunny could fire you and you couldn't pay for your kids anymore. You couldn't pay rent. That's the way the outside is. That almost happened to me. Area manager, you know, didn't like me. He was struggling. He wasn't very competent.
Probably felt threatened by you.
Maybe. I mean, he hired me. You know, I mean, he was okay at his job. He was just he just had his issues. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, he tried to make us the scapegoat, us as the store managers for some of the things that were going wrong. And what I found this out much later. So he was the area manager, then the operations manager, his boss. That guy's wife was the office manager for the whole. He was the franchise, so she was office manager for the whole company that owned the franchise company that owned all the stores. And it just so happened my first store was across the parking lot was the franchise company's office. So I had the owner up my ass all the time. I had all the management up my ass. I had this office manager up my ass all the time. So she would come in there and ask questions about, you know, the daily reports, the credit stuff, the cash balance, all these things. And I explained to her why it was off, what was going on, you know, talk to her about it. And that saved me because I knew my shit. So I found out much later after corporate Krispy Kreme bought out our franchise that that area manager he was trying to blame me and was getting ready to fire me. And his boss was listening to it. And the office manager, the guy's wife, stepped in and said, "That's bullshit. Chris knows his business. Every time I have a question, he knows the ins and outs of what's going on in the store. Things didn't slip through the cracks because of Chris. It slipped through the cracks because of this, or this." She saved my job, you know what I mean? So
The wife.
the wife,
Why? How was she so intimately involved in the business?
it was all a family.
Okay.
There's probably a still open lawsuit about it. If
Okay.
anybody wants to go study the history of Krispy Kreme, Dallas Fort Worth. So yeah, it was old Southern money that was involved with Krispy Kreme back in the beginning. They bought out a lot of franchises, and one of the sons bought the franchise and then sold it back to Krispy Kreme for $50+ million. And
Wow.
yeah, so they all hired. There was a lot of nepotism going on, and so that's how she was involved. She was office manager, so but because she handled the books, she
knew the inner workings.
yeah, but she knew that I knew my shit. That was a life lesson right there. Is that know what you're talking about, be involved. If you can't speak to something, don't speak to it. If you don't know, say I don't know.
There's a lot of people that have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
With that last piece right there. Because I think when you get to a certain point, the mindset becomes commonplace that you have to know everything. But, one of, I guess, our saving graces in our ag field is you can't know everything. It's impossible. And there's no harm in saying, I don't know, but I do know who does. And that's where you got to establish your network, and you've got to be able to identify, assess, select, retain, and retain those mentors, even if those mentors are your peers. So if there's a low density skill set that I'm not, abreast of, you better believe I'm reaching out to the guys that are. And but that comes in humility, and I think for a lot of us, it's hard to show that weakness. But if I ever had that, which I probably did, I've let that go. And I think I'm better for it.
That's my favorite Marine Corps leadership principle. Learn self, seek self-improvement. You know what I mean?
Right.
Find out what you don't know and try to learn it. So not only do I find the guy that knows it, I try to learn at least where I can speak intelligently to what he has going on. I try to apply that in being a parent.
So where are your gaps? With that, where are your gaps?
Yeah, I don't know how to use who and whom correctly. But I started studying up on it. I started trying to use it. My daughters get mad at me. Quit saying whom. Like, that's the right way to use it. Because I want to be able to speak like I have a little bit of education, So,
right.
Just things like that. Just know yourself, seek self-improvement.
Where does religion fall into your balance?
Not at all.
Not at all?
No.
I didn't ask this earlier, and I usually ask this before I press record. Is there anything off limits?
No.
Okay.
No. That's, I went to church when I was in high school. I'd argue that probably because the people I was surrounded by. I grew up in a broken home. Mom, my dad was in prison. They split up. I talked about this with my buddies back home that on paper, a lot of us could have turned out to be screw-ups easily because we had that story. All of us came from broken homes. A friend of mine's parents were in prison. Grandma was in prison. She killed his grandpa. All this stuff. But we all turned out okay. We're all doing pretty well for ourselves in life. Some for the military. One guy's a firefighter. One guy's a very high-end photographer.
So you still have a circle of friends that you're really close with back home?
Yeah, the Marine Corps makes you disconnect from people when you're away from them. People that are here that I'm close with, I probably will rarely talk to until I cross paths with them. But my group of friends, as soon as I'll go back and meet up in Texas. We're best friends again. We can hang out. And left off where we were last time. But all of us, my theory is that we all were successful because of each other. because, we weren't into bad stuff. We didn't do drugs. We didn't drink too much. They kind of went away. We started that early in 9th, 10th grade, but we kind of matured beyond that. We didn't go steal cars and all that kind of thing. We hung out. We were a little nerdy. We did our thing.
How nerdy?
I mean, I think I'm a nerd now. You know what I mean? So,
like, what classification of nerd? Because I mean, there's
I don't know, just goofy jokes, weird movies. The things we talked about. It was just, we weren't like. I mean, I played football, but I wasn't. I was cool with all the football players, but it wasn't like I spent my weekends with those guys. It wasn't like, yeah, we're gonna, let's get drunk and chase bitches and, go mud in our trucks,
Yeah.
We were poor and we just hung out and we told corny jokes and drank soda and hung out with church girls, you know what I mean? So, I would argue that being around that crowd, my group of friends, our core group, and then, the church people we were around, kept us out of a lot of trouble probably because we learned you could have fun without having to do some of the stuff that ends up ruining so many young people, especially those without enough adult guidance.
So you hung out with the church group, but were like you involved in the church?
Yeah, I mean, every time doors were open, pretty much went, kind of thing, So I felt like I believed it back then. I look back and I don't know so much, I've kind of moved away from believing that. But I understand the philosophies of Christianity, or really all the religions, Be nice, don't judge people, help out the people that need help. Let people be themselves. As long as it doesn't affect you, don't worry about it. Just you set the example. That's the kind of the philosophies behind, especially because I grew up, I'm an American from Texas, so Christian. You know what I mean? So
right.
That's my reference point. But the philosophies of Jesus, I try to not what a lot of religious people follow and teach and things, but actually understanding the things he tried to teach. That's the way I try to live my life. But
when was the last time you picked up a Bible?
I don't know. I mean, recently, I guess. I picked through it. Like I said, I look at it as a philosophy book.
Okay.
I'm not anti-religion. Well, I'm anti-organized religion. I think it causes a lot of problems in the world. But I don't think religion itself is bad. I don't think the Bible itself is bad.
Maybe the application of it.
Yeah, I like people. There's a lot of things there you can pick and choose. People pick and choose the things that fit them. People go through the whole gay thing. I don't want to get political on this, but because they bring up the book of Leviticus. The book of Leviticus has a lot of rules that people break all the time. The same people that will bring up this specific ones that meet their mindset. That's the Old Testament is a story and a legend. The way I look at it, we talk about the birth of Jesus on Christmas. I look at it as the same. We tell the history of Santa Claus. It's a legend. It's part of our culture. It's a tradition. But there's life lessons to learn from that story and from Jesus' story and stuff. That's why I look at it. So I look at more, how does my behavior? I believe a lot of the biblical rules and a lot of religion rules are in order to keep society, make a society. So I look at it, because a lot of people say if there's no religion, then there's just be anarchy and people would be going around killing people and there'd be no, because I want to make society work. I want you to have a good life. I want you to enjoy your family. I want you to be able to drive to work and, do what you got to do. So, I understand that my behavior and the way I treat people affects our human society as a whole. So that's the way I kind of guide my life. So it probably parallels some religious teachings, but I don't believe in the mystical. I think when your time's up, your time's up.
And that's it.
That's it.
That's it, go.
Yeah. I was going to have Lee left this podcast, this is my attorney right here, my legacy.
So with that being said, do you think there's, as a senior staff non-commissioned officer, what's the value in having a leveling function for us as it pertains to core values and leadership principles and leadership traits and things of that nature?
It's funny, I was kind of thinking about this, actually, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, I can't remember, my shower thoughts, you know what I mean?
Shower thoughts.
But,
I'm a subscriber.
Yeah. I think, actually the conversation came up yesterday, because we were talking about this, the shooting in Florida yesterday.
Okay.
You know, Second Amendment always comes up. And there was one of our peers, you got respect, you know, our political views don't match very often. A few things we've agreed on, but, you know, and the topic came up of gun control. And he immediately went to, you know, they come try to take my guns, I want to, you know, they're gonna get shot at, I have this arsenal and all this and that. And I said, okay, so, you know, rule of law, I'm not a gun guy, but I understand, I believe in the rule of law. Our Constitution says there's a Second Amendment, that, you know, that we have the right to bear arms, so I want to respect that law. So I asked that individual, who also, you know, touts rule of law a lot of times for the, you know, the different debates we have in the office. I said, what if they go through the legal process to amend that amendment, to change it? An amendment comes out that revokes it. What would you do then? Would you accept it because you're a rule of law guy and you're a Constitution guy? Or would you rebel against it? And he revolted. You know, so he wants it one way but not the other. You know what I mean? That's the way I look at it. So I think a lot of people bring their morals. Your morals shape who you are as a person. Unfortunately, part of this organization, you know, I was telling Marines all the time, I'm the commandant. When Chris Thomason becomes commandant, shit's gonna change. You know what I mean? The haircut rule is gonna go out. You know what I mean? There's gonna be a little more leeway in some things, a little bit stricter in other ways. But till that day comes, to be part of this organization, you have to give up some of your personal beliefs in order to be part of the organization. If you can't accept that, if I just can't shave every day, you know, I can't not smoke weed, get out. You know, that's the trade-off. So I look at it that way. So, you know, in particular, homosexuality, right? There's a lot of older generation especially, but there's a lot of guys that have, you know, are counter to that, but we've accepted it in this organization. As a nation, but specifically in this organization.
Right.
You know, gay marriage, all that kind of stuff. Anybody that brings a religion into it, or their personal morals or beliefs that affects how they do their work, should not be part of the organization. Because you don't get to pick and choose the rules.
Right.
You know.
It's funny.
If the Marine Corps comes up and says you're going to get a swastika tattoo on your forehead tomorrow, guess what? You get that tattoo, you get out. You know, am I getting that tattoo? Fuck no, I'm getting out. But
time to go.
You know, the organization's not for me. I used to have Master Guns to say something bigger than yourself, and we say it all the time. But it took me a while to actually understand what that meant. You don't mean shit. You know, we talk about when you leave your desk and you move to your new job. Guess what? You come back and visit. The world's going on without you. Nobody's so valuable. I used to always joke with Marines that the guy that replaced Chesty Puller came in and said, "Okay, now that asshole's gone, I'm going to make things better." You know, it's just the way it is. You know what I mean? So.
Who was that guy? They don't write books about him.
I guarantee he fixed a lot of problems. You know what I mean? So this is the way it is.
Well, at least problems as he perceived them, right?
You know, we're not that important. So you have to drink the Kool-Aid. You have to set yourself, you know, give it up a little bit. And when it's time to call it quits, you call it quits. You want that GI Bill, you want those VA benefits. The trade-off is, you know, getting goofy.
You got to follow orders.
Yeah, you treat people fairly and according with policy, and you call it a day. You know, I have to run, you know, all that stuff. That's part of the trade-off.
But is there a value in teaching from the very get-go? JJ did tie buckle. These leadership principles are the things that which you shall apply as you're executing that responsibility. Honor, courage, commitment. Where's your core values card?
Is there a value in it?
Yeah, is there a value to that?
Honor, courage, and commitment. Well, I think that's a recruiting tool. I mean, that's my personal belief, right? It's important, 100%. I believe in those three things, but I think it's something that's applied because it sounds good and looks good on a poster. I believe there's a lot of slogans that have been put out recently with different campaigns that are the same kind of thing. But the true tested, you know, your leadership traits, leadership principles apply to anything. Like I said, I apply to my kids, civilian employment, I interact with the public, education, and then work. You know what I mean? It's those things do apply to everything. So I absolutely, the unfortunate part is you don't understand that because you're a dumbass 20-year-old Lance Corporal who just wants to get out because this life sucks because you're cleaning shitters all the time. You don't realize you're making $40,000 a year cleaning shitters. You don't do the math, but you know you're just managing to clean shitter you get yelled at. But I mean, absolutely. You know, I like the leadership principles better than the traits. I don't have them all memorized. I try. It's a lot. It's not as easy as JJ did tie buckle, right? But I tried to make them my devices to remember it, but I always forget them anyway.
Why haven't we figured that out yet?
I know. I think they're good ones, but those
right.
things.
But your favorite, and you quoted already, was know yourself and seek self-improvement.
Yeah. Nobody's perfect. You don't know everything. You always have room for improvement. And that's, I've talked to my, you got 300 PFT, congratulations. Run to 1730 now. Do 28 pull-ups. You know what I mean? There's nobody, you can always add one, infinity, right?
So for me, the next stepping stone has always been, what did your Marines run?
Yeah.
So yeah, you got your 300 PFT, but you're a corporal, you're a sergeant by that time. But what are your subordinates doing? Because they're now the reflection upon you, and that's the hard one for, I think, a lot of people to internalize. I did a stint out at SOTG as an instructor evaluator, and we had this detachment come through, and they probably had one of the best RTs. They were stacked, as RTs can be from time to time, and their TL was content to just outshine the other assets in the detachment. But my point to him was, because he was a Spanling, I could ask him in Spanish, ¿Qué te cuesta? What does it cost you to send your ATO or your RTO over to that team to teach them how to come up on the net, to ensure that they're just as proficient with their warfighting skills as your guys? And here was an individual who was intent on submitting a commissioning package. If you don't understand that now as a sergeant, the validity of expanding your sphere of influence, I'm scared for the Marines that you'll lead as an officer, because you've got some growth and development to do. Personally, your character is flawed right now. If you can't see that as a sergeant, we went round and round about it. Eventually, of course, being as an instructor evaluator, I could shape the scenario to have my way with things, right? And continue to put pressure until he was forced to comply. But I think sometimes we get so caught up in our individual competitiveness that we can lose sight of the fact that we've got to look out for the greater good.
That's the sacrifice of the leader.
Right.
That's my first duty station was in London, the security forces. And I was spit and polish, peacetime Marine Corps, plus you're on very visible duty. And we had a CGRI, uniform inspections. And one of the squad leaders got a NAM for his uniform inspection. Nobody in the squad did. You know what I mean? And that was the lesson I learned early on. Okay? He should be the worst one because he should make sure everybody else is squared away. And I did that here. We had a uniform inspection. I'm walking around, letting the sergeants and staff sergeants handle it. I'm just observing. There's blues. And I see some sergeants chewing out like a Lance Corporal because they have a shit mark. His t-shirt, no, it wasn't blues. What was it? Maybe it was dress blues, deltas maybe. Can't remember the uniform now. But they were checking his markings of his gear. And chewing his ass for it. And I walked up, I said, hey, pull the sergeants aside, away from all the Marines. I said, I saw you correct that agreement was wrong. Oh, he didn't have his stuff marked. I said, is your stuff marked? Yes. Let me see. All right. I said, when's the last time you inspected them? Is this the first time? Yeah. I said, then fuck you, because you should have made sure their shit was done well before your shit was done. You should have shoved it like a bag of ass. If they were that screwed up, you shouldn't have spent 1 second on yourself until they were done, because you're making them better. It's not about you, it's about them. So, yeah, it applies, and it frustrates me because, early on, because that's how you get promoted. It's selfishness. You got to get yourself better PFT. You got to do that, but then you have to transition. Some people don't either learn or they don't know how to make that transition. And unfortunately, some because they're a good package, they go officer programs or special programs, and it's that much more. And then we get those officers that are arrogant,
require a little bit extra mentoring.
When I'm a master armor 20 years, I get a phone call from a field grade officer a few days ago, and he says, "Oh, are there any officers there? I got to talk about something." To me, you know what I mean? I'm like, all right, yeah, no, nobody's here. Sorry, maybe I can help you. You know? That's frustrating because you get that arrogance in there because you think you're better than everybody else. Because the reason officers they don't realize the reason they get a little more freedom is because it gives them more freedom to serve their Marines. But instead, they look at it as, hey, I went to college. I'm the same age as that guy, but I went to college, so I'm better than him. No. You went to college and you were especially chosen for a job that's supposed to sacrifice more for those junior guys.
Yeah. I was recently reminded of a quote of the SecDef when he was still in uniform about not giving a shit about the officers. I'm worried about that Lance Corporal. He's my primary concern, and to a great extent, I think he's still got that perspective. And, I'm grateful for it, especially during these times. So, where do you get your news? How do you stay informed, keep abreast of current affairs? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you get it from Facebook? Is it Fox News, CNN, Breitbart, the Drudge Report?
I don't watch a lot of TV news. I watch a lot of TV anyway, but a little bit of TV time I don't waste on news. I mean, CNN or Fox News is on The Office. Twitter is usually my starting point. I'm not a Twitter producer. I'm a Twitter receiver. So I follow a wide variety of different angles. I follow some. I follow the president, and I follow a lot of more conservative people, and I follow a lot of liberal news things, and I follow some things that I think are a little middle of the road, that are a little unbiased, and I try to make an informed decision.
Right.
And then, I scan through, I try to read through the bullshit. I try to stay away from Facebook because 90% of, the news on there is very biased. There's no research, which is flat out wrong. I use PolitiFact a lot because what I've seen is an unbiased. People say it's biased because it tends to be biased. They only look at the shit they're interested in, and sometimes it gets shot down left and right. So they say, oh, it's biased against my side. No, it's biased against, the untruth. So I use that as kind of a starting point of, to figure out what exactly is right, what's wrong with it. Then I try to do some more research, on things if it's something that's really contentious.
Right.
But yeah, Twitter's probably my starting point to kind of see what's happening, and then MSgt.com, just basic news crap. But current affairs, just staying up on it, stuff like that is Twitter's probably the thing I go to.
So outside of just like the news cycle reporting, what deep dives do you do, if any? Like, are you reading, some of these pieces by Rand or any of these other think tanks out of the Beltway or elsewhere?
Some.
Because
Recently I haven't been reading as much, but I like to read a lot of military, geopolitical type of books. A lot of it's after the fact, but it gives you context. Like one of my favorite books is Ghost Wars.
Okay.
Pulitzer Prize winning. It talks about the beginning of.
Who's the author?
Let's see, Steve Colin something. I don't remember.
This is where I need a young Jamie.
Let's see.
We don't have the budget for that yet. Maybe I could start a Patreon.
Ghost Wars.
I can throw it in the show notes. That's something I need to work on too. Is including maybe a timeline with
Steve Cole. Yeah, so
Steve
I was
Cole.
pretty close. It's Ghost Wars: The Secret History of the CIA, Afghanistan, and Bin Laden, and the Soviet invasion to September 10th, 2001. And it shows just mistakes that we made that were not intentional. We as a nation, we as an intelligence community, we as political leaders, we thought we were doing the right thing. We were trying to meet a certain objective, but we don't think about the third order effects of these decisions we make and how it's not necessarily our fault, but we didn't help the situation. Things we've done, things other nations have done, things that happened internally to those countries and those groups that we were, having strife with, how it got back to kind of September 11th and kind of why that happened and how we got to the current environment we're still in. So I like stuff like that. But at least I haven't read a whole lot of that recently. I've just been kind of being lazy, I guess, and reading. You know, I got an unlimited data plan, so I play on my phone more than I used to.
What do you play?
On your phone? I'm saying, reading stuff on there.
Okay.
And I just finished reading Stephen King's It, and that's like 1,200 pages.
Was that the first time you read it?
Yeah.
So I read it as a child. I think I must have been about 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And, my parents, I don't think they really paid much attention after a certain age, because I was a voracious reader. I still am, but my youngest son just recently asked to start reading Stephen King, and it was one of the books that he identified, and he's reading well above his grade level. And the problem that we find ourselves in is that the content doesn't necessarily match his maturity level, but he can get through the material and he'll understand it and he'll get it.
But you want to preserve a little bit of innocence,
right. And how far do we want to go with that? And there's a very controversial scene in there that it's interesting because there was a recent quote of Stephen King where he says that people fixate upon that scene when the entire novel is about children being murdered.
Yeah. The parents not giving a shit.
Right. It's about that one scene. But taking it into context, and being older, I didn't understand it at the time. I just thought it was strange and new and weird, but looking at it now, I think I get the reasons why he included it, but I don't know if I'm ready to explain that to my 11-year-old.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where my wife being a teacher and me being an avid reader, we've never told our boys no when they've asked us for a book, and with the oldest, most recently, he wanted to watch HBO's series Game of Thrones. And there's a lot of violence and sex and grisly scenes in there, to say the least. And the deal we came up with, him being older, was if you read the books, you can watch the show. So of course, he upheld his end of the bargain. And wife wasn't overly pleased with it, but we found a common ground.
Yeah.
Compromise. So if I were to ask you, what do you suck at? What pops into your mind? Like we kind of talked about, where are your gaps and whatnot, but
in a professional sense, I'm assuming.
Yeah, like.
It's a tough question. Everything,
I don't believe that.
It's tough. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm an expert in anything. Like I said, I'm not afraid to say I don't know. I feel like I try hard. I know my strength is, leadership, I think anyway. I've been pretty successful, I've been told. And just overall management stuff. But what do I suck at? To use the word suck, I have weaknesses. But
right.
What do I suck at? I suck at day-to-day intel work. Sitting on a watch floor, writing reports, juicing reports, knowing the regulations. So in our community, I've never had to do it. My analytical time was targeting. I would try to find the needle in the haystack.
It's like production and reporting.
Yeah, just the daily grind of the intel community. And unfortunately that puts me at a disadvantage as a leader. If I get put in the wrong positions, I'm gonna have that steep learning curve. But that's been every build I've ever been in, to be honest. And so,
right.
I know myself to seek self-improvement. So I know where I'm gonna have to work at. Future jobs that if I get in that position, I have to be able to do it.
Yeah, I've always found my comfort zone being in operations,
Yeah.
and like who's going where. Do they got everything they need? Authorizations in place, you know, kill sheet, EDL, mission execution checklist, yeah, all that stuff. So yeah, I would say I suck at that too.
Yeah.
But if I had to ask you who you would like to see next on this podcast, what names come to mind?
Well, Joe Plumley.
Joe Plumley.
He's an interesting character. He was a mentor of mine. He was, we were both lat movers. Came back in about the same time. Second round together. He was a sergeant. I was a corporal. I caught up to him. Was through sheer luck past him. There's nothing that I would say I'm better at anything than he is. It's just the way the promotion system works. I was able to pass him up. We're both master sergeants. I mean, it's just I got the slight edge on him. But even now, I feel intimidated in certain settings with him. He's good at what he does. He's a lot of life experience, a lot of unique views on things.
You said intimidated.
Yeah, he's smart. He knows a lot of stuff. He's like Gary Cross. He's unassuming because he's a hillbilly, but he's he learns stuff and he listens. He's good with people.
He is good with people.
So he'd be good. And there's Dan Adams, another guy I look up to. A legend in his own making, I think. But,
a legend in his own mind.
Yeah, but he's a good dude. He's got a lot of interesting philosophies on things. Nick Watson.
Okay.
He's full of, you'd be on it for maybe an 8-hour podcast.
With Nick Watson?
Yeah, that dude will tell you everything you're doing wrong. And
so it's funny that you say that because he's actually been ducking me.
All right.
And other people have asked him, hey, what's up with that? I haven't asked him. I haven't drilled in too much into him yet. But other people have been asking him, what's going on? I think to a certain extent, it's somewhat intimidating to throw the headphones on.
Well, I think he has the same issues that I had coming in.
Which is what?
I'm not creative. I don't think I'm that interesting. And the things that push me to succeed is understanding my shortcomings and trying to overcome them, and trying to, overcompensate for my weaknesses. That's why I try to be the best at everything I can, because it hides, my lesser abilities. I think he's the same way. He and I talked about that recently. I will steal his thunder if you actually trap him and get him in here. But you know what I mean. So it's to sit down and talk about yourself. So that people don't go to therapy because they don't want to, look inward a little bit. And so.
You think this is therapeutic?
No, but I'm just saying it's the same concept. It may be. I don't know. You do it more often than I do, so you could probably answer that question.
So, most Hispanic men have a hard time expressing themselves. My dad was no exception until towards the end of his life, and I chose to go as far away from that as I could, and to grab my boys, to hug them, to kiss them, to talk to them, to share with them, to let them know that it's okay to be scared, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to cry, and then by extension with the junior Marines, to let them know top doesn't know everything. There are certain time frames where, or certain points in time and space where I'm going to need your assistance. I'm going to need help from you. I'm going to need your expertise. You have to know these things, because I didn't go to the schoolhouse to learn that. But my job is to take where you are right now and make you even better, so that at some point in time when I drop my papers and I'm out of here, you can pick up the slack. And I think that sometimes it's a bit difficult to open up, but for these last hour 45 minutes, you've been able to do that, and I appreciate it, because it's not easy. you know you're being put on blast. You're putting yourself on blast. So, you know, not to be too corny and circle back to the core values, but there's some courage and commitment for you. I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Thanks.
And with that, we're out.